2018, somewhere in the blazing emptiness of the Australian outback, a shepherd lifted his lantern and froze. What he thought was a scorpion was dragging a field mouse. No, not dragging, pulling, silently, with 8 legs precise as pistons. Then the ground swallowed it. The sand fell still. The night went quiet. That instant, he realized he hadn't just seen a spider. He'd seen an organism that had perfected the concept of killing long before humankind invented the sword. Spiders are not errors of evolution. They are its finest equations. Every joint, every fiber of hair on their glossy exoskeleton is tuned to the frequency of survival. Their fangs measure pressure gradients. Their silk can be softer than smoke, yet stronger than steel. Their eyes, multiple and unblinking, form a dome of perception that misses nothing. Each of the tens of thousands of species on Earth represents a different interpretation of the same commandment that nature carved deep into its code. Endure by hunting. The first of our 13 shadows comes from South America, the Goliath bird-eater, a creature so massive it sounds more like folklore. Locals say when one moves through fallen leaves, you can hear it before you see it. Its leg span reaches up to 30 centimeters, its weight close to that of a young rabbit. When cornered, it raises itself tall and hisses by rubbing the bristles on its legs. People describe that sound as like air escaping from the earth. Yet it is not aggression that drives it, only calculation. In the Amazon, silence is death, noise is warning. And the warning comes before the strike. Just north of that, beneath the thick canopy of Brazil's tropical forests, lives another specter, the Brazilian wandering spider. Scientists rank it among the deadliest spiders on the planet, not because it hunts people, it does not, but because its venom was built to disable anything that breathes before it even knows it's been bitten. A single encounter forces the nervous system into overdrive, muscles locking in an endless scream of electricity. Yet in the tiniest twist of irony, pharmacologists are studying that same toxin as a foundation for new neurological drugs. The universe has a cruel sense of symmetry. From the humidity of the Amazon, the air thins and turns metallic, the scent of iron and stone. Australia, a continent that seems to specialize in nightmares. Among them, the Sydney funnel web spins its legend. Shin black, fanged, and ferociously territorial, it does not flee when disturbed. It stands upright, dripping venom from polished fangs, as if daring the world to take another step. Its venom attacks nerve cells, forcing the human body to convulse until exhaustion. And yet, precisely because it was so feared, scientists perfected an anti-venom. No fatalities in decades. In the act of understanding its killer, humanity disarmed it. If death can be microscopic, it wears the shape of the brown recluse, barely the size of a coin, invisible in cluttered attics, closets, basements. One careless graze, and the area around the bite turns purple, then gray, then simply collapses. Flesh melts under chemical digestion that begins outside the spider's body. It liquefies its prey before consumption, drinking its meal like soup. The domesticated world of carpets and wallpaper hides a predator worthy of ancient jungles, and yet, not all arachnid assassins rely on poison. Some program physics into artistry. Hidden in the jungles of Madagascar, the Darwin's bark spider constructs the largest web known to science. Imagine a structure spanning 25 meters, the width of a city street, spun over rivers as bridges of silk. The polymer chains inside its thread have 10 times the toughness of Kevlar. Engineers have spent decades trying to reproduce that chemistry. None have succeeded. To this single spider, it's routine. Every evening, it weaves the architecture of death, tuning each strand to the vibrational frequency of dragonflies. Every tremor tells it which part of the web to move toward, how heavy the prey, how strong the struggle. You could call it instinct. The truth is closer to intelligence expressed through geometry. Meanwhile, out in deserts of Iran and Saudi Arabia, evolutionary cousins of the true spider prowl the dunes, camel spiders, the myth every soldier learns to fear. Soldiers told tales of them chasing humans, eating camels, screaming. Most of that is myth, or more accurately, misinterpretation. These arachnids sprint at 16 kilometers an hour and sometimes chase people only for the shelter of their shadow. But their jaws can slice through flesh like garden shears, and they hunt scorpions with surgical focus. Fear only magnifies what's already terrifying. Precision without mercy. 7 down. Now we move to the edges of legend. In the equatorial heart of Congo, explorers whispered about Jabafofi, a spider the size of a dog, coloring like mud and leaves, capable of weaving traps wide enough to catch birds or even small monkeys. Eyewitnesses speak of sticky burrows hidden under layers of vegetation, nets camouflaged against the jungle floor. Western science, of course, dismisses it entirely. Yet every generation brings new reports too consistent to ignore. Maybe these tales are memories of a real creature, an evolutionary echo from eras when oxygen levels made arthropods giants. Or maybe they're manifestations of the primeval fear encoded in us since the first humans watched webs glisten in firelight. The pressure drops, snowflakes turn the air into silence. On the desolate peaks of Chile, there survives a whispered entity, the snow widow. Locals insist it lives beneath the crust of glaciers, building small ice-lined tunnels and feeding on frozen insects. Scientists, skeptical yet intrigued, documented residue of web proteins on exposed rock where temperatures never rise above -30 degrees Celsius. Biochemists theorize that its silk contains antifreeze proteins similar to those found in Arctic fish. If that's true, it redefines the limit of life itself. In the coldest silence of the planet, an arachnid heart still beats. Below sea level, however, thrives another miracle, the diving bell spider. It spends nearly its entire existence underwater, inside a bubble of trapped air, woven with silk and anchored to aquatic plants. Each breath diffuses with the surrounding water, recharging the bubble indefinitely. No gills, no lungs built for underwater life. Just perfect exploitation of physical law. They stalk aquatic insects, ambushing them within liquid shadows, making the impossible feel routine. That was 9 species, the tangible and the legendary. But before we descend into darker myth, we must pause at an older truth. Mankind has always folded spiders into stories, because spiders embody both death and artistry. Each civilization painted them across its mythology. The Greeks blamed Arachne, cursed into 8 legs for daring to rival Athena's weaving. Egyptians prayed to Neith, spinner of creation. Native legends across the Americas spoke of grandmother spider weaving the sky itself. They are never purely monsters. They are reminders that every structure, universe, or web depends on thin tensile lines that can be severed at any moment. The 10th shadow lives there, between science and fable. Deep within Venezuelan Tepuy plateaus, the stone mesas that rise like drowned islands from the jungle, explorers once documented an unnamed tarantula species glowing faintly under moonlight. It shimmered in soft green luminescence, each hair reflecting ultraviolet light. Locals called it El Guardian, the guardian. They claimed it guards cave entrances to keep men from waking ancient spirits. Biologists who tried to collect samples recorded seismic humming within the cave walls, a resonance precisely matching the frequency of wind through hollow stone. Maybe mere coincidence, or an unrecognized form of communication. But even the most rational researcher confessed afterward that the air itself seemed to breathe. And still, stranger things crawl nearby. On the volcanic islands of Hawaii, explorers found translucent, eyeless cave spiders, creatures adapted so utterly to dark that pigment and vision vanished. Their sensory hairs can feel the movement of single air molecules, detecting prey as a faint vibration through empty night. When lights shine, they freeze motionless, blending into rock. These are the ghosts of evolution, where necessity stripped away everything unneeded until only function remained. That makes 12. One last monster waits, not in jungles or glaciers or ancient myth, but here, among us. It doesn't hiss or glow or chase across sand. It lives under radiators, behind vending machines, inside subway vents. It feeds on the city itself, the urban huntsman spider. Already it grows larger where heat and food are constant, where vibrations of human machinery create steady rhythms it can read. City ecologists found colonies thriving in tunnels, too rich in insects to starve. Here, under neon instead of sun, the line between wilderness and civilization disappears. And that brings us full circle to the shepherd back in the Australian dark, staring at that patch of sand that swallowed the mouse. Maybe it was just a giant funnel web. Maybe it was something we haven't yet named. Nature does not bother with secrets. It simply waits for us to notice them. Our planet is alive with hunters refined beyond imagination. Some cataloged, some whispered, all lethal in their precision. The world spins, the webs vibrate, the kill goes on. Now, pause. Let the light fade and listen. Hear the faint shift in the corner, the echo stuck between seconds. That's the pulse of the old mathematics. 8 legs, perfect balance, endless hunger. The shepherd's story ended with silence, but the silence itself became the thread that connected all of them. Because each species of spider is a different note in the same invisible symphony of tension and timing, vibration and strike. And the deeper we go into their world, the more we realize the borders between myth and anatomy, instinct and intelligence begin to blur. On the outskirts of Southeast Asia, there exists an arachnid with a name as soft as its deception, the golden silk orb weaver. When sunlight hits its web, it blazes like spun fire. Most travelers mistake it for decoration, never realizing its fibers can stop small birds mid-flight. Its venom is mild, but that hardly matters. The web does the killing. Engineers once tried to weave garments from that silk, harvesting tens of thousands just to produce a veil. It glowed like molten gold. Scientists discovered the fibers were built on nanocrystal arrangements impossible to replicate synthetically. Imagine something so small, so alien, dictating how light itself bends, how matter behaves. Spiders built optical physics into their homes. Move inland deeper into the jungles of Laos, and you'll find the net-casting spider, the ogre-faced hunter. 2 huge eyes face forward, lenses so sensitive they function like professional camera sensors. This spider weaves not a normal web, but a handheld net, stretched between its front legs like a trap waiting to spring. It dangles in the dark, head down, watching for shadows below. When an insect passes, it drops like lightning, pinning prey with precision that would shame any machine. And at dawn, it dismantles its net and rebuilds it from memory. No teacher, no hierarchy, just perfect repetition, as if the mind inside knows geometry better than we ever will. In post-war ruins in Eastern Europe, ecologists found something stranger still. Inside bomb craters overrun with plants, isolated spider populations had turned cannibalistic, a long-legged species feeding exclusively on its own kind. Without outside prey, they evolved thicker armor, bigger jaws, slower metabolism. A living metaphor of survival turned inward. Scientists called it the cannibal web builder. Every generation, fewer remained, until only one cluster survived, self-regulated through violence. For years, those craters lay forgotten. Recently, drones recorded new webs inside them, glowing faintly under radiation. Life always adapts. It doesn't forgive. It recalculates. Then, in a laboratory in Tokyo, researchers built microhabitats replicating Martian atmosphere to study extremophiles. Alongside bacteria and fungi, they placed common jumping spiders. To their astonishment, the spiders survived low pressure and stark CO2 levels for weeks. Their silk adapted, becoming thicker and more adhesive. These creatures responded not with panic, but ingenuity. By the third week, they were weaving dome-shaped shelters shaped perfectly to seal against vacuum leaks. It was evolution's rehearsal for another planet. If humans colonize Mars, spiders might weave the first true homes there before we do. Back on Earth, the high altitudes of the Himalayas hide one of the most isolated arachnids known, the Himalayan tunnel orb spider. Biologists traced its shimmering silk halfway through rock passages that open into glacial caves. Temperatures drop below freezing. Oxygen is scarce. Yet there they rest, their entire colonies living inside frozen architecture, feeding on insects that wander too close to the vents. Thermal imaging shows their bodies glowing with an unexpected heat pattern, a metabolism burning at higher rates than anything comparable. Some suspect microbial symbiosis allows them to generate internal warmth, a primitive spark of bioengineering. Others think it's a trick, thin air-breathing illusions into human eyes. Either way, it blurs the line between animal and environment. But perhaps the most eloquent killers don't hide in ice or shadow. They live where people refuse to notice beauty inside danger. Picture the red-kneed tarantula of Mexico. Vibrant, defensive, almost gentle, unless provoked. Its bite rarely endangers life, yet local tribes once used its hairs, launched through blowpipes to paralyze prey. The hairs embed into flesh, causing fire-like irritation. Hunters called it borrowing power from the volcano. When Europeans saw it, they labeled it grotesque. When biologists studied it, they found peptides in the venom that could regulate cardiac rhythm. Monsters, it seems, often heal what they harm. And then comes the 13th, a creature more rumor than record, whispered within dusty archives of South American mining towns. Miners called it La Tejedora de la Muerte, the Weaver of Death. Descriptions vary. Some claim it glows red in darkness, others that it cries like a baby when spooked. The pattern is constant. Those who try to find it disappear into collapsed tunnels riddled with silk too thick to break by hand. Samples pulled from these sites show fibers laminated with minerals, possibly hybridized through contact with heavy metal dust. Did evolution experiment there? Merging earth and organism? Or do we simply project our dread into every dark hole? No one truly knows, but somewhere below the Andes, the silver webs keep growing. By the time you've met all 13 killers, patterns emerge. The bigger they get, the more patience replaces motion. The smaller, the more velocity takes the role of strength. Nature balances the equation endlessly. Each body is tuned to survive where it's born. Humans celebrate invention. Spiders embody it. Silk production, for instance. Scientists recently discovered that some species can alter molecular structure mid-spin, changing elasticity depending on weather. One line for rain, another for wind. A mechanical miracle coded into instinct. No machine, no loom on Earth can match that real-time adaptation.